Hey guys, what's up guys, and hello guys. I saw Shazam a bit ago and had quite a bit of thoughts and criticisms for it, so I just thought I'd make a review. I've actually seen, weirdly, a lot of praise for this movie, just like straight praise, and not that much criticism, but while I can kinda see where it's coming from, I personally have a good number of problems with the movie. So I want to get my opinions out just after the reviews have come in, after it's been a financial success, after people have generally formed their opinions on it, as just kind of a retrospective, a look back, like, what did I think? So without any further ado, just jump into it. Also, spoiler warning for the rest of the video, so just go to this time code that I'm hopefully putting onto the screen if you want to avoid those. So first, plot and characters. It's good. I'm just going to go down the list of characters briefly and give my opinions on them, and then I'm gonna go into the plot. So Billy Batson, or Shazam, he's a 12-year-old foster kid who gets powers. On the character itself, it's pretty good. The superhero aspect of Billy Batson is by far the most interesting part of Billy Batson. The kid is pretty good, like, is sure, foster kid, whatever. The more interesting and more compelling part is just how 14? How a 14-year-old would act if he got superpowers and looked like an adult. But he's pretty good, but he's way more interesting as Shazam, and should have spent more time on that. Freddie Freeman, he's a disabled foster kid. He's funny, very stereotypical bullied orphan character, but in this one case, the acting really makes up for it. It by far outshines the character, but I'll get to that later. As a character, kind of cliche, but fine. Dr. Savannah is the villain. That's all, that's his character, that's the character. He was going to get powers as a child, but then he was told, you're not worthy. His motivations make sense, and you can definitely understand his point of view, like almost getting superpowers and then just being denied, being told you're not good enough as a child. It makes sense, but as a character, he's not that good. He's just really unspecial. Like, he's the most generic villain archetype you could make, really. Billy's mom has no other credited name, which can tell you more than enough about how developed she was as a character. She's just something for Billy to be looking for, but as a character, she doesn't have one. She just is, and all she is the teen mom with an unwanted pregnancy, and I don't know. They don't go into it, but I just don't understand why they included it at all, because they just don't develop her in the slightest. She doesn't have any character beyond that stereotype. The next couple of characters I'm gonna group together, which anyone who has seen the movie can understand. Darla, innocent, Mary, college. Eugene, gaming. Rosa Vasquez, orphaned foster mom. Victor Vasquez, orphaned foster dad. Pedro. He died. Why is he in the movie? Why? But like, why? He does not have a character. I just don't know. His character is that he wears earbuds and is on the staircase. He has maybe one line. So these are the foster people. All of them have one character trait, or in Pedro's case, none. And that's just the character. That's all their character is in this 2-hour movie. They gave each member of the supporting cast of this movie one trait, like one defining characteristic. I assume I don't have to explain why this is not so great development. There's such shallow stereotype. It's really... You'd think in this 2-hour movie they would have time to, develop the main cast. Now for the plot. Pretty good. I don't have many large criticisms for this part, but it helps for the rest of the video to know what happens. So, Billy got lost at a carnival with his mother when he was 3. Now he's a 15-year-old foster kid who has been looking for his mother ever since. The villain was chosen to be the successor to some great wizard, I don't know. But the wizard sees that he's tempted by the 7 deadly sins, and he isn't worthy, I guess. And he's not granted powers, and he's spent his life trying to get back to that weird place, I guess. He finally gets there, and he, teams up with the sins, and he harnesses their power to defeat the wizard. Billy is sent to a new group home where he meets his foster siblings, the only important one of which, Freddy, is a disabled kid who gets bullied at school. Billy is then chosen as the wizard's successor. He gets powers, and he tests them with the help of Freddy. He stops a few crimes, but mostly uses it for shows, makes money. Freddy promises Shazam, who's Billy, would be at school lunch, but oh no, he doesn't show up! What's he gonna do now? Freddy gets mad at Billy and they argue. The villain comes to kill Shazam and they fight. Billy starts insisting that foster people aren't his real family. He'll find his mom. The fun superhero stuff comes to a screeching halt for Billy to find his mom, and he meets his mom, who says that she did see him that day at the carnival, but decided to leave him, which... Okay, I would have been much more fine with this. Why not just have it so that she saw that he got lost but just, didn't look for him? Seeing him. They do a whole thing where she sees him with the police and she's like, they could take better care of him than I could. No. Billy realizes that family isn't all about blood relation and that the foster family is his family. Then he fights the villain for half an hour. Somewhere in there, all the foster kids also get powers. Also, at some point, Billy wins. The end. The plot is not amazing. It isn't particularly focused. It's pretty cliche. But overall, it isn't the plot that's the problem with this movie. It's the other aspects of the filmmaking that has flaws. But I'll get to those later. Acting. good. And then it's really bad, but like overall pretty good. Zachary Levi as Shazam did pretty well. Pretty goofy. I liked his relationship with Freddie Freeman. He was funny at times, and he did what seemed like what would happen if a 15-year-old got powers. It's solid good from me, and that's where I'll leave it. Asher Angel, who plays Billy Batson or Child Shazam. Pretty good. Little moments of him shine through where it's clear, like, he's an actor. Like, it kind of takes you out of the movie every, like, a couple times, not often. I'd say he gave a solid, pretty respectable performance, especially for a 16-year-old, that's good. But there were definitely points where the script didn't really give him much, the scene was poorly written or blocked, and where he just didn't give an amazing performance. Alright, but definitely not a stellar job by any means. Mark Strong as Thaddeus Savannah, or the villain. Not much to say here. He wasn't really a bad actor. But I don't know if he's a good actor. He's the villain. His motivations were clear, but it was so bland. It was so generic. Like, hello, I am Batman. We punch demons. Oh no, I have been overpowered. Not bad, just like exceedingly bland on Strong's part and very vanilla and generic on the writing part. He's just the bad guy who they stop and then is done. Jack Dylan Grazer as Freddie Freeman. Really good. Damn. That's a good child actor. He's one of the fewer people acting in this movie who I'd say did a really good job. Like, he provided good comic relief, but he clearly wasn't just there for the comic relief. He has an actual developed arc, and he's essentially the voice of reason. And he just gives a generally good performance on all fronts. 8.5 to 9 out of 10. Like, really good. Does the job. Heck. Jimon Hounsou? I don't know. DJIMONHOUNSOU. I'm not gonna do it. I can't. He's the wizard. 3 words. He was bad. I've never seen him in anything else, so, like, I'm not gonna judge him as an actor overall, but wow. Not good. He just straight up gave a bad performance, severely underwritten as well, but the actor himself was just not good in this role. A large complaint of mine coming out of the theater was how much time they spent in the beginning in that weird underground lair explaining stupid magic mumbo-jumbo and poorly lit scenes that go on too long. And, well, I think that was largely a problem with the writing, directing, pacing, just overall structure of this movie. I think I could have put up with it a whole lot more if this actor did a good job. I don't want to say, like, he's a bad actor, because this is the only thing I've seen him in. So, I'm sure he's done something better, I hope. But in this movie, he was just bad. He was not good. That's not, no, not, no. The remaining foster kids, other than, Freddie and Billy. Faith Herman, Darla Dudley, she's good as you could really expect from a 10-year-old. I mean, I'm like not that far off. I'm not gonna say my age, but like, eh. But I couldn't give a good performance. I mean, like, I'm in acting stuff, but like, I can't expect that much from a 10-year-old in like $100 million movie. I don't really know what to say. Like, the only thing I didn't like about her character wasn't her fault. She was just like there. Grace Fulton for Mary Bromfield. She did well. One of the better, if not the best foster kid, other than Freddie or Billy. I don't know. She was fine. Eugene Choi as Ian Chen was not good. Generally, just pretty poor performance. But I don't know if anyone could have made his lines sound good, even if they weren't in his age. It's like just such a bad, poorly written character. His character is gaming, if you forgot. It's just like he is nothing else, and the writers clearly don't have a good understanding of like games and stuff, or the culture, or like anything that could make writing about gaming in a blockbuster movie good. So like, Jovan Hovan Armand as Pedro Pena or whatever. I don't know what to say. I guess he did fine. But he had like 2 or 3 lines of dialogue at most. So I couldn't really judge his performance because he was so badly underwritten. There just isn't a character there. He's just... To give my opinion on their superhero counterparts, they all did a fine job, but I think only like 2 of them had one line of dialogue, one of which was, "Wow, look at these sick abs." So, can't really judge. But the heroes really had no narrative or thematic purposes in the story. Billy could have just saved the day with the help of his family without them being superpowered, but guess it happens in the comics. I would have been more fine if it had been connected to like some internal struggle, like if one of them struggled with greed or something, so they fight greed and it symbolizes some like inner struggle, but none of these have any character. So like, nah, they just punch large monsters and that's kind of it. It only really made sense as a conclusion to Freddy's arc, so I am in support of him getting powers, but everyone else not so much. Overall, the foster kids were good, but they didn't have characters. It felt like they picked a trait out of a hat, gave it to the actor and writer, and that was the only thing they had to go off for the character. Mary has college, Darla is cute, Ian is an epic gamer, and Pedro... Again, I do not know what Pedro is, but he has earbuds in, and that's his character. How do you do, fellow kids? This, on top of the subpar direction of the kids, adds up to the children just feeling like one-dimensional movie kids, not real people. It's weird. In a 2-hour and 10-minute movie, again, you'd think they'd flesh out their main cast. The foster parents, finally. Marta Milans, who's Rose Vasquez, the foster mom, was actually very good. She, not the most deep, 3-dimensional character, but well acted for what it was. Cooper Andrews, as Victor Vasquez, or the foster dad, was not great. We didn't see too much of him, but I wasn't really convinced by what we did see, and I just didn't think he did well. Not much else to say. The parents were another example of very underdeveloped characters. Their entire character is basically, we used to be foster kids, but now we're the foster parents. We understand your struggle. But even if great actors who did phenomenally in those roles were placed there, it still wouldn't make them good or memorable characters. The real problem with the foster kids and parents isn't the actors, it's the writing and direction. Now about the writing and direction. Pacing. This is such a weirdly paced movie. Even if the acting was all perfect, I still couldn't have given it an amazing score. But as you already saw, the acting wasn't perfect. So let's just jump into it. First, I'll say the obvious. This movie is too long. This should have been like a clean 90 minutes of like a comedy action movie. And there was so much stuff we just didn't need. But no, some random dude walking by the studio while filming Shazam said, hey, you know what would make people want to see Shazam? Making it longer than The Social Network. And then he went into the editing room and said, hey guys, we need you to stretch this movie over 2 hours, you understand? Who wanted Shazam to be this long? Who wanted this? Was it you? It certainly wasn't me. I'm starting to suspect something. I think it was you. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Scenes in this movie go 2 minutes longer than they need to sometimes, and the movie goes 40 minutes longer than it needs to. Why does it speed up and slow down so much? It takes its sweet time setting up every aspect of the story in the weird, badly lit magical lair, and then immediately goes to the foster kid stuff. The magic stuff goes on way too long, and even if the scenes individually aren't that terrible, which some of them are, thanks to the acting of Jimon Hounsou, as a whole, it's put together really clumsily and just way too long. Then it goes to the next section with the foster kid stuff and Billy becoming Shazam. This is where it speeds up and it seems like it's just going too fast. The sad thing is, this is where it should have slowed down. I think everyone else I know who saw it thinks, and all the reviews I've seen have thought this was the best part of the movie. It was the best part of the movie, so that should have been the bulk of the movie, but they interrupt it to conclude the subplot about his mother, which isn't good, has little bearing on the rest of the movie, and just wastes time and brings the movie to a screeching halt to finish a pointless subplot. That funny superhero stuff is why people aim to see Shazam, but they just brush past it. The Shazam stuff, excluding the dragging, mindless fight scenes with the main villain, comprises so little of the movie. It should have been the other way around, but it brushes past the fun stuff and gets to the third and last chunk, the fight scene at the end. And let's get this straight. Before people comment about how I'm being overcritical on Shazam, I'm fine with fighting in your superhero movie. There is such a thing as good, well-done action with slightly less character or motivation-based fighting in your superhero movie. It's a superhero movie. I get that it won't be the most character-based, thoughtful cinema, but the action has to be well done. It has to be well integrated into the rest of your movie. And it has to not be the fight scenes in Shazam, which break rules 1 and 2. They had I repeat, one fight scene with the villain before the final fight. Then the huge fight scene happens. This scene goes on maybe 30 minutes. Not sure of how long it took, but that's what it felt like. Never mind how the fight scene was actually done, which was also bad. It shouldn't have been 30 minutes at all. You can have 40 minutes of fighting in your action movie, but not all at once with almost no build-up. The movie just comes to a screeching halt for the strong people to punch demons. As I discussed before, the foster kids getting powers has no narrative or thematic purpose. It only serves to extend this already overlong movie. By the end of the fight scene, I was getting deja vu from other parts of the same fight scene. I feel like the antagonist took Shazam by the neck and flew him around with him in his grasp to intimidate Shazam at least 4 times. This slows down the movie. It has no build-up. It isn't particularly narratively satisfying, not even considering how bad the overall execution is, which is bad. I walked out of this theater thinking much more poorly of the film than I do now, because what stuck with me was my first impression and the end. And those were the worst parts of the movie, and I feel like it took up the majority of it. This movie has a tone problem. Before, I was saying how this movie could be split up into like 3 distinct chunks. That was just as much of a problem with the extreme tone shifts as it was with the pacing. This is just like not a cohesive movie. The magic stuff in the beginning is incredibly boring, and you'd expect them to inject some humor into it that keeps people engaged to fit in with the rest of the movie and to fit in with how this movie was marketed. Here's the thing. Shazam, the movie with the name Shazam, starts off with a young child being told he's evil, a subsequent car crash resulting in a possibly fatal injury, and the child being told that he is responsible for his father's serious industry. Let me just get something out of the way. This is not how you start Shazam. I'm not even a fan of Shazam. I had never read anything related to Shazam before this movie. This isn't Shazam. This isn't what Shazam should be, and I can tell that. This is not how you start the movie that's named Shazam. This movie starts off in a weird magic lair and stays there for so long. It isn't interesting, and the magic stuff is not engaging or particularly necessary to go in depth into. This part goes on for so long. I was thinking back to the trailer I saw, and it almost seemed like they pulled a reverse Justice League, where they wrote and marketed a fun comedy, and then they went back and did reshoots with like a horror fantasy director. When it finally gets to Billy Batson and the superhero stuff, after he gets out of the lair, the tone gets much lighter, and the movie starts taking itself much less seriously, which is good. This is, unsurprisingly, the best part of the movie. Billy and Freddy actually have a good chemistry, and I started to enjoy this part. It then comes to an abrupt halt to conclude the mother subplot, which I've already gone into. It gets very serious, so they can take a side plot that has no purpose and didn't need to be in the movie. The change in tone makes the acting get worse, because I don't think Shazam was made to address deep themes about human nature, parenting, and ethical dilemmas. I don't know, maybe that's wrong, but maybe it's just me. I'm not sure, but that's just my guess. They stop the good part so Billy can go talk to his mother in a somber scene with Carolyn Palmer, who I didn't mention in the acting section, but she was bad. They finally do that so they can go back to the fun stuff. Fun. Couple more good scenes pass. Then it starts to show that the director, David F. Sandberg, is a horror movie director who they hired to direct Shazam. Bold move right there. But in this scene, the bad guy marches into his father's company's headquarters, interrupts a meeting, and then has his demons kill everyone. There was like a 7 or 8-year-old sitting next to me while we witnessed, out of frame, a demon biting someone's head off, and in frame, 2 or more people getting violently thrown out the window of a skyscraper. This was all well done, and would have actually been like a good scene in a slightly tamer horror movie. There's even a part where the receptionist hears them screaming and approaches the door, and I feel like everyone in the audience was expecting him to say something like, "Are you doing all right in there, boss?" And then the demon tries to imitate the boss and says, "Yes, all great." And the receptionist just says, "Okay," and everyone groans because it was such a bad joke. Instead, he walks up to the door, approaches the handle, and then there's literally just a straight jump scare. You just see like a demon's hand bang the door and the glass cracks. That would have been great in a horror movie or even a horror comedy, and I respect the well-done subversion of expectations. But not in Shazam. After this, the movie just goes back to Freddy and Shazam having fun, playing around with his powers. It's so out of place. It takes me back to my earlier statement. It's not that the scenes individually are bad. In fact, in this case, I can respect the filmmaking. It's just that they don't flow together as like a well-done, cohesive narrative. The movie just goes back to the actually good, fun stuff, and after a few more of those, switches into full action mode. I've already voiced my opinions on this scene. I'm just going to say here that the tone and structure of the scene doesn't work as a continuation of the rest of the movie. This film definitely has highs and lows, and the highs are good to generally mid-range, but the lows are quite bad and feel like an entirely different film most of the time. This movie has good parts, but it needed to work better as a cohesive whole, instead of just feeling like a collection of good but very distinct parts. David F. Sandberg is a director that I've heard of. I haven't seen any other movies of his. I'm not into horror, really, at all, excluding The Shining. But he seems good enough. I like that he puts his wife in all of his movies, and she actually did well in this. I thought he was competent enough at directing Shazam, although there wasn't too much unique style or creativity, which I wasn't really expecting from Shazam, but it would have been a bit nice. I know I can't expect much from a superhero movie at this point, but it's possible to create stylistic and at the same time engaging action. The fact that David F. Sandberg is a horror movie director definitely makes sense in the context of Shazam. I was kind of confused why they went in the direction they did with the 7 deadly sins and the main villain. Going back to the scene I discussed where demons bite people's heads off, but it definitely makes more sense knowing Sandberg's history. He seems competent enough in horror, although Annabelle creation wasn't supposed to be good, but judging off the one or two horror-y moments in Shazam, he seems okay. But I don't know why they chose him for this movie. It's the Taika Waititi scenario, where an indie filmmaker makes a couple of great, or in Sandberg's case, successful movies, and so the studios scoop them up and make them direct a movie with a budget of $100 million. As to his actual skill of directing actors in this movie, he seems good enough. He was always going to have a hard time as a horror movie director making an action comedy with a main cast comprised mostly of children. But the actors seem well directed. Zachary Levi, the main adult, is one of the more competent performances, compared to the foster kids at least, whose performances essentially got better the older their actors were, with the notable exception of Jack Dylan Grazer, who is the best person in this entire movie. David F. Sandberg is competent. He is just good enough. Fine. So here I'm going to go into technical stuff like editing, visual effects, design, sound design, just like generally. This is a part that I have a more direct, slightly less opinionated or subjective beef with. The effects in this movie weren't good. For a movie with a budget of $100 million, it looks very bad. The obvious game plan for Shazam, you would think, is to make a more self-contained movie, to go away from the main DCEU. So you'd think they'd just jump at the opportunity to scale back the action and focus on comedy, which you don't have to pay thousands of dollars a second for. In fact, no. This movie, in an act of pure studio habits, grossly overestimates how much good visual effects you can make with a budget of $100 million, which is somehow a relatively small sum in the superhero field. Like, why? First, I'm going to go to editing. Pretty boilerplate, standard superhero movie editing. There were a couple odd cuts, strange places where they ended a scene, going back to a problem with the pacing, where a lot of scenes could have been cut like 30 seconds to even 2 minutes earlier, but generally fine editing. Good comedic timing when it actually commits to the comedic aspects of the movie. Second, I want to address the look and general design of this movie. The look of Shazam's costume. To be honest, it's kind of amazing. He's so goofy, and they address it. They address how stupid he looks, but it works with the tone of the movie. When the tone is what it should be, and is consistent, which, as I addressed earlier, is very much not always the case. I liked that they never actually changed his look, that it was just, stupid, which was interesting when you think that this suit and Shazam exist in the same universe as the Man of Steel Superman. Think about that for a sec. Also, on a related note, I didn't love the Superman cameo in Shazam. I enjoyed the way it was executed with a little gag where you don't actually get to see his face, which was probably done just as much for financial reasons as it was stylistic, since Henry Cavill wasn't actually there acting as Superman. But although I can appreciate the execution, I would have liked this movie better as just a standalone film. I was fine with the whole Superman bullet thing that Freddy has. I just didn't like that he appeared in the movie. But although I liked the Shazam suit design itself, that doesn't mean there were no flaws I had with it, or the other superhero designs for that matter. Speaking of which, visual effects. not ideal. The monsters were fine, and they looked polished. But the suits, I see a lot of people comparing this movie to the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films, which I have never seen. But one thing I know about those movies is that they had real suits that weren't just CGI. Shazam should have been this. It should have been Zachary Levi walking in a ridiculous, stupid, real-life suit. While I like that they didn't pull an Iron Man and do the suits completely in post, I hate that I believe they seem to have digitally touched up his suit in post. I understand that you can't have lightning coming out of his chest in real life, so you have to do that with visual effects, but why worsen your perfectly good, well-made superhero suit that was actually worn by Zachary Levi during filming? It didn't need those post-production effects, and those effects turned the great suit you can witness in the behind-the-scenes footage into a slightly fake-looking, like, off-putting, uncanny valley, just like straight-up worse suit and overall look for the movie. But the visual effects go insane, and not in a good, fun way, during the final fight scene. The chunks of Savannah and Shazam flying around are frankly jarring and literally hurt my eyes. Like, I had to look away from the screen for a couple seconds, like several times, just to rest my eyes at the end of the movie. When the camera is moving fast, the effects get noticeably bad. And when everyone else turns into superheroes? Nope. Definitely not. Please, no, don't. When the foster kids turn into heroes, the suits are clearly very much done in post. Like, a lot of very, very touched up. And it looks bad. Those suits don't look real at all. And not in, like, a fun 90s rubber suit kind of way. They look fake in, like, a bad mid-2000s terrible CGI way. They're eyesores. Well, the problem I had with the other foster kids turning into heroes was that neither them or their superhero counterparts got much screen time or development, which made the whole thing feel unnecessary. I'm almost happy we don't see much of their superhero versions because they just look really bad. Other than that, most of the movie looked okay. Just those characters looked like they belong in a crappy early 2000s CGI Disney movie. Or even better, one of those low-budget Disney cartoons that they make based off their movies. Speaking of cartoons, the sound design of this movie, not amazing. I have one real beef with it, and that's kind of it. The sound effects are distracting and cartoonish. This shouldn't be a problem in Shazam. In fact, the cartoony vibe may have been what they were going for. It makes sense. However, this movie does have a tone problem, and they don't always fully commit to the wacky tone the whole time through. But they do commit to the sound aspect of it, which is kind of weird. So they definitely do commit, and you don't really want a cartoon sound effect playing as bullies beat up a kid with disabilities. And that happens. Shazam is one of the most frustrating kinds of movies because it had such a promising concept with such amazing potential. It could have been such a fun, good, enjoyable movie, but it's weighed down by so many little things, so many tiny, annoying problems, and it just loses the charm and humor that it could have had. Shazam is fine, And that's it. Just okay. Would I recommend this movie? No. To the average person watching this video, no, I wouldn't. If you're a big fan of David F. Sandberg, who's in the mood for a comedy that's also weirdly a fantasy or horror and also has superheroes in it, sure. But for everyone except that one person in the world, I just can't bring myself to do it. There are good aspects, but it's just not worth it. I give this movie a 7 out of 10. It's closer to a 6 than an 8, but I'm keeping it at a 7. So guys, thank you for watching this video. Psych! Shazam is the greatest movie of all time! 11 out of 10! You've all been duped! And you know why? You wanna know why? Because Shazam flosses in the movie! He flosses! As a child of today, I feel very represented. I also liked when the gamer said, die, die, die! And the other person said, don't worry, it's just a game. As an epic gamer, I can relate. What a cool, fun, hip movie that speaks to me as on a personal level, as a child of the youth. Thank you for watching this video. I worked hard on it. I want to thank my friend Hudson for seeing this movie and discussing it with me and being there as a consultant and a secondary opinion all the way through the process. Sorry for the long wait between videos, but I've had a lot of things going on. I also want to say thank you for the reception of my last video. I mean, everyone's raving about it. It's like, whoa, Nate, what a great video, and it's so well timed. It doesn't stretch on too long. It's good. It's good. It's yay. But seriously, I'm happy with that video, and I think it's pretty good, and I worked hard on it, and now I'm happy because it's my most viewed video. Here are some other videos of mine, and like this video and subscribe if you enjoyed it. So as always, bye guys, goodbye guys, and see you next time, guys.